Star Wars fans. Hey, did you know there's just 179 days until Christmas 2021? That means there's less days until this coming Christmas than there were to last Christmas. Oh, it's time to get your Christmas shopping started. Today, I'm really excited. We've got a new guest to the show, somebody who's been in the Star Wars community for quite some time. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been doing daily live streams. I reached out, and Jason Ward from MakingStarWars.net has agreed to join us today just to talk about some Star Wars. So, Jason, welcome. Good to see you.
Hey, Santa. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Just for folks who may not know about MakingStarWars.net and Jason Ward, tell them a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I run my own Star Wars website. It's mainly on Star Wars news that interests me. So that will just probably be behind the scenes news and what's coming, and then maybe some reviews here and there. And then I'm known for having scoops, amongst other things, but scoops. And so on the site, I'm always very clear. It'll say spoilers in the headline if there's something that may spoil you. But if it doesn't say that, then it's going to be an open report that will not do that. So yeah, so if you want some Star Wars news from one guy's perspective, that's me.
Well, that's great. That's great. And we've got a lot of our regulars here with us today. Thank you all for joining. It's good to see you. And there are many topics to talk about. And the first one I'd like to lead off with is sort of the thing that's been making a lot of noise today, right? There's as with the Star Wars community, every now and then things come up as controversy that's not really about the content. And here we have a bit of a slogan to keep our content about the content. But every now and then we have to talk about controversy. So today there is a little bit of controversy, and I want to share that with folks. If you're not familiar, the Lego Star Wars Slave One model that is being released has this little title on it that says Boba Fett's Starship. Well, this has people all in an uproar. Does that mean that they're changing the name of Slave One? Does it mean that they're running away from the name Slave One? What does it mean? And a lot of people are creating the typical clickbait kind of videos today, talking about what a travesty this is. So, Jason, what's your take on the Slave One controversy?
Yeah, so over the weekend, I got an email from Lego saying, hey, do you want to be under embargo and see all the new Lego stuff? I was like, yeah, I'll see if it's something that I'm interested in. The very first thing I open up is Boba Fett. I'm all Boba Fett Starship. I'm all, maybe it's a new Mandalorian ship that we don't know, or from the Mando show. So I open it and it's Slave One. And I'm like, okay, so it's marketing. And then I'm like, oh, here we go. And my take is like, I asked a family member, I'm like, hey, do you know what Boba Fett's ship is called? They're like, no, I don't remember. But I remember being a kid and being told to pick my Slave One up. You know, the little glass part got stepped on one time and cracked. And I remember them using the actual name then. And but today I asked, or yesterday I asked, and they had no idea. And so it's like one of those insider kind of things when you're deep in the culture where it matters, but in reality, it doesn't.
Right.
People call it Boba Fett ship, and that's what they're going to buy it as.
Yeah.
And a child may get that knowledge, but they probably won't unless it's on the box. Like, which is probably why I knew it, because I can't think of anywhere else as a child I would have known that except for the Marvel comic.
Yeah, I was trying to remember today how many times they've actually referred to Slave One in any Star Wars show, like movie, the Mandalorian, or
Clone Wars, maybe, Clone Wars. I think did.
Yeah, I'm having trouble remembering.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure I've heard it, right? The Slave One, but I'm not, I can't pinpoint it. And so I think it comes because we know. Right.
Yeah.
Brian Stone says only once in Empire. Okay. So, that's the thing is, I don't know that an average fan, and I said this in one of my Discord chats with somebody on the controversy of the day, was look, for the normie, they don't know what the Slave One is. And if you told them, hey, can you go by Walmart and pick up a Slave One for me? They'd be like, a what? They're not just going to say, oh, I know what you mean. You're going to say, hey, can you pick up one of those Boba Fett starship, his ship for me? They'd be, oh, okay. Right. And at least they have a point of reference. The second thing is there's a reissue of the Slave One coming out in the Vintage Collection series this summer. And I got a note just a couple of weeks ago that it's been delayed until July. So in the next couple of weeks, I should be getting my Vintage Collection ship. And I'll lay you bets that that's going to say Slave One right on the front.
Right. Unless the rumor goes around, it was delayed because they had to change the box. No.
right. Well, and here's my take is that what's going to happen is it's going to come out with Slave One on the box. And then all these people are saying, oh, I'm so angry. Lucasfilms changed the name of it. We're going to riot, protest, whatever it is, light the torches and pitchforks and come for them. And then the Slave One will come out and they'll say, ha, Lucasfilm gave in. We won. You're like, well, no. It's always going to be that.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think if it was bumming anybody out because they draw a connection between a certain thing and American history, for instance, or whatever, if it's bumming them out, then maybe it's good that it's not there. But if it's not really an issue until they made it one, in a way by removing it, then I guess you could just still call it that if you want to, right? It's kind of
right. Exactly. It's like, I don't know that Martin. So I don't know if you know Martin. He has he has every Black Series figure that's been released for Star Wars. So wow. Everyone that's ever been released. There's a couple of internal Lucasfilm ones that he's not been able to get his hands on, and I think he almost has the entire market cornered on Constable Zuvio from The Force Awakens, which was a stellar character that was in like 5 frames. So I think he's cornered the market on every Constable Zuvio that is in existence. And so Martin's here, he gives me a hard time all the time. He's always poking the bear, and it talks about the blurgs because we don't have a blurg in the Vintage Collection yet, but it's in almost every other collection. Of course, that's we just now got Quill.
I'm just tripping out right now that it's like 2021 and we're talking about blurgs at all. Like, isn't that like just so trippy? Like, it was like this Ewok. Was it Battle for Endor the first time we see it? And it's just, or was it Caravan of Courage? I can't remember which one it was now. But yeah, it was one of the Ewok movies. And then like here we are, and it's like a mainstay because of how deep Star Wars is today. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. So Martin's all the time giving me a hard time about Quill and the blurgs, and he's just poking the bear. He likes to get me worked up and rage out. So that's Martin. He's a great friend, fantastic guy. So yeah, I think that it's a bunch of political nonsense on this Slave One, and I think you said it really well too. Like, that's not necessarily something that in 2021 having Slave One on your box is necessarily going to help with marketing, right? Yeah. And if you need to change the name of it, or if there's a rebranding, maybe that's a good thing,
Maybe it'll help. Maybe in a weird way, it'll actually make somebody go, "What is the ship called?" and then buy a book and start reading. I mean, I might be stretching there, but maybe.
Well, there you go. Star Wars Real Talk. Really good point here. It was originally the Fire Spray 31, right?
Yeah.
So, good point. Good point. So there's another topic. So I want to go ahead and talk about your video from Friday. You were able to kind of touch base on it, and this could be into the spoiler territory. So apologies for anybody that may not want to know anything about Obi-Wan going in. Jason, you were able to confirm to some degree that Inquisitors are part of the scope of the Obi-Wan show.
Yeah, and I don't know if I was clear about it on my show, and just to be clear too, like in the depth of spoilers here, I'm gonna say this is like gonna be in the trailer probably. I don't have any access to a trailer, I didn't see one, but it's probably like at that level, just to be clear. And yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of Inquisitors. I wasn't really clear about that on my show, I don't think, but yeah, I saw things that really cemented it and confirmed it for me.
That's awesome. And, go ahead.
Yeah. So if you are a fan of the Inquisitorius, if you want to use a really big nerdy word, they are coming and they're going to be chasing after Obi-Wan. And so like I was like, wow, does this means in a weird way, and this is conjecture on my part, that's probably going to be the catalyst that brings Darth Vader into the story, right? Like when we take like Rebels into it, and this is all speculation, but like in Rebels, you have the Grand Inquisitor ends up getting called down to go after Kanan, and then finally, when that isn't happening, then the big guns come down, and that's Darth Vader. And Kathleen Kennedy has promised this Darth Vader rematch. So my guess is that there is a process to this.
Yeah, that's a perfect introduction, because now you get into the speculation, the fun stuff, right? We've heard that Hayden's going to be in the Obi-Wan show. We've heard that he's going to be in suit, and there's been a lot of speculation about flashback scenes to the Clone Wars, and people really excited about Clone Wars content. But now hearing that the Inquisitors, one or many, are going to be in. Certainly, they would be taking direction from none other than Darth Vader himself. So now maybe Darth Vader isn't just flashback scenes. Maybe Darth Vader is in active scenes during the era where the Inquisitors are reporting to him. He's giving them orders and all of that.
Yeah. And I have to think, like, every day I get asked like 5 times, is Hayden going to be in the suit? Is Hayden going to be a Clone Wars flashback? And I honestly don't know. But the fact that they were so adamant about getting ahead of scoopers that Hayden was back leads me to believe he's in enough that they wanted to announce it. And that's just like, that's so rad, right?
Oh, it's got a lot of people excited. And that leads to also the speculation. I think that hashtag shows the one that would kind of spurred on the rumor in the first place that they had heard about this, and that there's early development, which means somebody thought about and they wrote it down on a notepad somewhere, that there would be an Inquisitor spinoff show from Obi-Wan. Now, again, that's complete speculation. I think in early development could mean anything, right?
Yeah. From what I understand, like, this is an opinion. Like, I think that they get most of their stuff through casting calls.
Yeah.
And then they try to connect it for what it means from the casting call. That's just my guess. And so I hope that's true, because I would love to see how that order works, and like how, somebody like is a Jedi who has this disposition towards being kind of selfish because they're human still, and then how that's exploited and then turned into that. I mean, it would be fascinating. Would it work on Disney Plus? I don't know. I'm hopeful, because the designs that they're using for the Obi-Wan show, I mean, if you've played Jedi Fallen Order, you know what they look like, but when the live action versions, it's pretty stellar.
Well, we have them in Rebels too, right? But
yeah,
and I've just been rereading the Ahsoka novel, because we've seen in the Bad Batch already R7, and we've had Rex. So with R7 and Rex, there's a tight correlation there to Ahsoka.
Right.
Concerned that she could show up and retcon the book and all kinds of things like that led me back to reread the novel. And in the novel, there's an Inquisitor who's got the word that she's out there, and he's out on her path. So again, like an Inquisitor spin-off show, you get more Hayden, more Vader, right?
Yeah.
You get these Inquisitors and potentially Ahsoka as they're chasing her down, Obi-Wan as you're chasing him down, and the scope of that show could be just tremendous.
Right. And they could fly with the lightsabers. No, sorry. It's just, I can't help making fun of that every time.
The copter saber.
When it happened, I took myself way too seriously, and I took Star Wars way too seriously, and I was like, what is this? And then now I'm just like, they did it. They tried it. Okay.
I can't wait to see the copter saber in live action. That'll be great. Oh my goodness. So there's a lot of potential, and again, when they say that it's in early development, that could be just at a concept phase. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're even writing scripts or that they've cast out everything. It's a concept. It's a thought. And they've kind of put a pin in it. Let's see if it goes anywhere from here.
Yeah, but with having a big story group, I mean, they probably every single time they have anything, they're like, what can we extrapolate from this? I mean, it has to be part of the job, I would think.
Yeah, and I think so too. And with any studio, there's I think always a plethora of projects that are in early development, and then some of those percolate up and some die, right? And never see the light of day. And John Campea talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
That early development doesn't mean we're going to ever see this show.
Yeah.
And so when I reported on it when that hashtag show released it, that this could be a thing, and that would be really cool. But at this point, it's early development, so let's speculate responsibly, my friends.
Yeah.
I love to say that, like, XR Coon. Good reference, XR Coon. They fly now?
They fly now, yes. Which was also a Star Wars controversy, because that's the world we live in.
That's the world we live in. Absolutely. And I can't read this, but Don, thank you for being here. I don't know what that means. From Whedon. I'm guessing this looks German to me, or at least in that part of the world. Good.
I saw Drakenlord Will Die, and I was like, "Whoa, that sounds metal."
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Drakenlord.
Santa, do you play drums? We can start a band, me and you. Drakenlord Will Die.
Oh, that's a good band name. Yeah. We do have friends of the channel here who are in bands. And I hate to mention them because some of them like to keep that on the down low. And they can show up in the chat, and I just don't want to reveal their secret identity. So I'll share with you offline so that we don't get it out there outside of their.
Is it the modal nodes?
No. So that's very exciting. And I saw your show Friday where you revealed that. And you mentioned just before we came on, you do have some content for today that you're going to share. We'll let you preview that, and then we'll move on to more Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, this isn't even Star Wars, but today I'm going to have some scoops about Willow and the production of Willow. So if you are a Lucasfilm baby like I am, and you followed everything Lucasfilm in the 80s, and Willow means as much to you as it does to me, I'm going to have some cool little things on Willow today. And that's just the start of my Willow coverage.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited about I am excited that they're bringing Willow back. I think it's a really good thing. And Dale's been out on your live streams as well, chatting with you. I know you've seen him.
Dale helps. Dale makes the dream work right there. Teamwork makes the dream work, thanks to Dale.
He's great. He's been following in our channel for some time as well. So Dale is out there. He's doing some good stuff. So I do have another topic. I saw this morning that Star Wars News Network was talking about how Amelia Clark is wanting to reprise her role as Kira in the Star Wars universe. Now there has been a movement. Star Wars News Network is really behind the movement on Make Solo 2 happen. And they've got that hashtag that they try to get trending once a year. And they've been doing a great job of that. I think we've seen where we do have a couple of things in the work that kind of follow that, specific the Lando show, right?
Yeah.
And that may pick up on that era, specific to the Solo movie, Solo 2, but that Amelia Clark is willing to come back. And we've also seen the guy that played Han, and I always butcher his name.
Alden Ehrenreich.
There you go. Good job.
I got you, Santa.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah. So, I think Alden is put some things out there that he's willing to come back. There are people who I think have warmed up to Solo since it came out. Like, it didn't do that well in the box office, of course, and it got a lot of heat and all that kind of stuff because it followed on the heels of The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And as Star Wars fans are like to do, we like to fight about things. So Solo 2 kind of got caught up in all that. But what are your thoughts on Amelia Clark reprising her role? Have you heard anything? Is there anything at Lucasfilm that might lead us to think that she could be brought into anything?
Yeah, I honestly, in terms of like spoiler stuff, I don't have anything to offer on that. I haven't heard anything. I honestly, at this point, started just digging on the Lando stuff, trying to find out, is the Lando thing a live action show or is it an animated show? Because that was one of the things that wasn't clear in the original press release. I don't know if that's ever been clarified, but it doesn't matter. It's still a possibility that we could have Kira back because of it. But the thing about it is, in terms of my take on Solo 2 and making that happen, and Amelia Clark is, I don't think you do it as Solo 2.
Right.
Because Solo, a Star Wars story, even though it did fine domestically, it just didn't do well overseas, really. And with that in mind, like, it has this bad reputation because of that. So what you do is you just build on that world. Like, you don't call it Solo 2, you call it something else, the Kessel Run, whatever it happens, obviously they wouldn't do that, but
right.
Whatever it happens to be, like, bring in those characters and like the whole Crimson Dawn angle and all that. So I think she will be back and she wants to be back. So that's a good sign, but I think it'll be TV for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way to like do it. And then just to step outside, and I like Amelia Clark a lot. So it's not like a dig on her, but her Terminator movie didn't perform and her Star Wars movie didn't perform. And I don't know if we're seeing her get any of those huge box office based movies anymore. But with COVID, it makes it even harder to like tell where that's at, So I have to think though that she really broke on HBO, right? In Game of Thrones. So she's totally gonna be back. I just think it's a matter of time.
Well, Game of Thrones is really her big one, right?
Yeah.
She really got huge with Game of Thrones, and that's interesting that you mentioned the two movies that she was attached with. She's not drawing people to buy tickets, right?
Right.
But in a TV format, she's widely popular. And her role in Game of Thrones was really, really strong. She was one of the leaders. Sure. Yeah, I mean, for sure. So to see her come into a series, maybe a Crimson Dawn series, right? Because we see that nice little cliffhanger at the end of Solo.
Yeah.
To see a Crimson Dawn series that features Amelia and perhaps brings in Eric and
Alden Ehrenreich.
Alden.
Somebody was telling me, I'm not caught up on the comics. I'm totally behind on my comics. Somebody was saying that there was implication that like some years after she's in the comics, and there's implication that she hasn't seen or had anything to do with Han in that time.
Well,
So
there is a really good uh, cameo of her in the comics
yeah,
where she intervenes after Boba Fett has uh, Han in carbonite. She
right.
steals him, so she's got Han in the carbonite, and so yeah, and she does talk in there about how they haven't had touch with one another for some time,
And
right?
this is the War of the Bounty Hunters arc, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, War of the Bounty Hunters. We have that on our Discord. So if you guys haven't kept up with the War of the Bounty Hunters, we've had some folks put it in our Discord where you can go get caught up on those comics in there. So there you go. So that is fascinating that she is around during the original trilogy era in canon now. So to have a Crimson Dawn series that kind of bridges between Solo and the original trilogy would be fantastic. And I think we could see some other folks brought in as well, right? That didn't show up in Solo, but would exist in that time frame.
Right.
Namely, one Boba Fett. Right.
Yeah, I want to see Boba Fett back. I want Bosk. I want Dengar. I want all the old guys from Empire Strikes Back. I want to see them. And I even want to see IG-88 now that we've seen IG-11.
Yeah.
I want to see how different, like, because Taika brings a personality to IG-11. They look the same, but I think that when you don't have Taika playing that part, it would be completely like, it would really show, number one, what Taika brought to it, but then also to make those characters different in a fun way. So I hope they do stuff like that.
It could. Well, the other one, and it kind of leads us to a nice transition, is we could get an Omega Fett,
right?
If that's what she goes by. I say that because she we know now that Omega is a Fett, right?
Yeah. That was my big kind of like realization when I was watching that episode. I was like, Boba Fett has a sister. They just really covertly did a I am your father moment with Boba having a sister, and I don't know if people caught on that first night.
Well, I know here on my channel before the first episode aired, we had that little image of Omega.
Mm-hmm.
I speculated immediately that she was going to be his sister,
right?
Like immediately. And so all along, we've been talking about here that she is the closest genetic sister that he has. That she's not age enhanced. I don't think she's force sensitive. I think any enhancement she has would be her perception. That's just my own speculation. But so what are your thoughts about Omega? Do you think she's force enhanced, or does she has any other enhancements other than just being a pure copy of Django that makes her Boba's sister?
Well, I was taken off the Boba Fett's sister path, if you will, because of she's the Ralph McQuarrie, Luke Skywalker when he was a girl concept with the short hair, and they kind of like cut her outfit a little bit to be more similar to that.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, oh, okay, so she's an unaltered clone, but she's female. And so there's something going on there genetically that's different, which means maybe she can use the Force. And I thought we were going to go in that way. And then you have the whole program, what assumed program, that Palpatine needs a body in case he goes to Exegol.
Yeah.
And then they need Grogu after Return of the Jedi. I'm like, okay, Dave Filoni. I'm drawing things on chalkboards and making connections. And I'm like, okay, so it's going to be that. It's going to be that. She's going to be a little clone Jedi, the only one, because you can only do it one time. It's not fair if you do it again. You can't clone Luke. You can't clone. That's it, man. That's it. And then now I'm like, okay, I don't think so. Okay. So now I think we're going to have, my opinion is that Cad Bane and Boba had that duel that we saw at one of the cons back in the day. That was going to be the end of the Clone Wars, kind of be like the, now Boba's a bounty hunter. Now he's made it kind of thing where he kills Cad Bane. That was a Clone Wars episode that wasn't to be.
Right.
And so I have a feeling that with now that she's a hot commodity, how do you end bounty hunters not coming after her forever? And there's two things about it. Number one is that we saw in Clone Wars that Boba Fett pretty much assembles a gang as a teenager from people who just respected his father and are like, this kid's going to grow up to be him. And I maybe I owe him one.
Mhm.
And so they treat Boba with reverence. Well, when the word gets out that this is the same thing, unless, there's a weird gender bias in Star Wars, which I think that they're not trying to go down that route, she should be treated with the same reverence as Boba. And as the bounty hunters figure this out, that's going to likely kind of change how they handle her. But also, if Boba is coming into his own at this point, and by post Clone Wars, is sort of the dude that we all thought was feared throughout the galaxy, and it should be, she's going to have that protection in the criminal world and the bounty hunters. I mean, if you were to go after Boba Fett's sister, you're going after, you don't pick on a guy's sister unless you want to get your butt kicked, right?
Very good.
So, right. So I have to think that if that's how this is going to wash out, but there's probably going to hopefully be some melodrama kind of peppered in as the realizations happen. That's my hope.
Yeah, well, you bring a couple of really good points to discuss. The first is she's just now learning, right? The Tech is the one who heard that Boba Fett is Alpha and that Omega was Omega, right?
And I guess that, by the way, that was my one thing I got right. I'm all, she's Omega. I bet you Boba's Alpha.
Yeah,
because Rex used to be Alpha, and then they took that away for some reason.
Yeah,
and so there was always a plan for that, and that was it.
Well, I had a friend of mine who may drop in. We'll see if he shows up in the chat. Will Morgan, he runs a channel called Meta Egg, and he looks for these little Easter eggs in different shows. Mm-hmm. And he picked up after the first time we saw Omega. He goes, "I'm calling it now. Boba Fett is Alpha. Omega will be that." So he went down this path, and then he had another. Gotta reach. He had another theory that she was actually going to don this prototype armor, right?
Oh,
so
that would look good.
Prototype armor. So the question is, will she and Boba become brother sister, like in relationship, other than just genetic?
Yeah.
And because she needs family, we know the Bad Batch is her family, and now that they know that Boba is her genetic brother, that might they seek him out, and how receptive will he be to accept her as his sister?
And on the flip side of that, I mean, she's a very, very, on one hand, naive, but seems very sweet, and does not seem like little Boba Fett was like, get him dead, yeah, he was like ready to fight, and she obviously is becoming a skilled fighter as the series goes on. But her moral compass seems so much less like a 6-year-old boy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I have to wonder if they're going to end up taking this down a different path, though, where it's like, that's my family. This is my chosen family. And my dad was this, but, am I that? Because that's one of the things that we've seen in Star Wars, too. My grandpa's Palpatine. What am I? And when your dad's Jango Fett, who, when you really get down to it, was part of the Confederacy of Independent Star Systems. That's not necessarily a background you might want to embrace. And so I think it definitely gives that character, though, some history to contend with, which could be fascinating if they handle it.
It really, really can. And I think that knowing that Boba is her brother and he wears the Mandalorian armor, and that her dad was Jango, he wore Mandalorian armor, might she pick up that white helmet that we saw in Sid's office? And does Sid have the rest of the armor? Might she wear the white armor? Might she become a bit of a bounty hunter? And we've also seen where Fennec Sheehan keeps saying, "Hey, I'm trying to protect you, kid," right? by kidnapping you.
Yeah.
I mean, Omega's not really in on the whole being kidnapped bit, right? Like, but might she end up going off with Finnick after the Bad Batch in like during the original trilogy era, so that she shows up again in, say, Book of Boba Fett?
Yeah. Yeah, that would definitely be really cool, because when you get down to it, the concept that we've seen with Boba Fett and how they're handling the Mandalorian kind of thing.
Yeah.
When there's another one, you're like, how does this end up working out? But at the same time, my prediction is the Bad Batch, who are soldiers, who are kind of doing these like gigs, like they're the A-team, but mostly for money. That doesn't seem like something that they would do for long. So I think it's only a matter of time before the two characters from the Clone Wars, whose names are escaping me right now, the two girls who they had that one episode where they were trying to steal the droid. What are their names?
The Marquez sisters.
Yeah, I have a feeling that if that's going to be their entry point into the Rebel Alliance, into like the early versions of it, that's my speculation, and then that Omega will become a part of that.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. And so, and Mike Porter is a staple of the community. And he's bringing up, Will Morgan, my friend with Meta Egg, is now going the Snow White and the Seven Dwarves angle with her. And I know Will is working on doing a Meta Egg about her. So we'll see how
that isn't a bad analogy. I mean, that's what George Lucas did with Caravan of Courage. Yeah. That was Heidi. The Heidi story was big in the 80s with girls. Yeah. George Lucas had a daughter. Let's make Heidi with Ewoks.
There's also that infamous thing where they split from the Super Bowl to show Heidi.
Oh, really? Yeah. I should have said Battle for Endor, because that's the one with Noah, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was at the end of the Super Bowl. It had gone long, and they split and they showed Heidi. And people lost their minds because you lost the end of the game. It was a big deal, and they're like, "Oh no!" And so that's when they started letting the game go long and postponing the start of the other thing. So it's funny you bring that up. He's on that kind of kick, which again, it's not necessarily a bad one. I just don't know how closely they're going to stick with that, because he's saying, well, she could go into hibernation. Maybe she gets put in carbonite, and maybe the reason she isn't there during the original trilogy is she's frozen. And in the Book of Boba Fett, he may go find her in carbonite, unfreeze her. That's my sister. Right? So there's all kinds of angles that can go.
Especially if the cloners wanted to keep like the template fresh, and they don't murder her, because the Tanway was the one who died, right?
Tanway died.
Yeah. And so, is it Lama Su who's the one who lived?
Yeah, Lama is the lame guy. I had to make a phonetic kind of thing to help me. All right, Lama lame, Nala nice. So that's all I remember.
That's good. Yeah. So maybe the compromise is you freeze her.
Maybe, and we can hide her easier that way, right? So it really, I think they're building up to it, and the other part is, how many seasons of the Bad Batch will we get?
Yeah,
I think that they'll go as many seasons as they can. Some people are saying that it's fixed at 2 seasons. Some are saying the season 2 is just a rumor. That it could just be 1 season. But for just my own impression is that it'll go as many seasons as it's still popular.
My impression, which is not a scoop or anything like that, but my impression from talking to a few people is that if there's a 2-season commitment, and I would imagine that they would make more if after the 2nd season it's still rolling. That's my guess. You know what I mean? If people are still interested.
Dale, I don't know if it'll go 2,539 seasons. It might get cut off at 2,537. Those last 2 seasons. I'm not sure. No, but we've been talking here that it really seems that the Bad Batch is modeled after the A-Team.
Yeah.
The characters, like if you were around during the 80s, early 90s, and you saw the A-Team, the characters are unmistakable.
Mhm.
It's just there. And the A team were mercenaries for hire. And the Bad Batch are now, and it was practically said in his exact terms where Sid was talking about being mercenaries and that they're being hired, right? So
Yeah.
the Bad Batch are mercenaries for hire. The A team were mercenaries for hire. The A team was post Vietnam, right? Veterans. These are post Clone Wars veterans, and it's a serial where a show where each episode is a monster of the week, bad guy of the week, crisis of the week, and it will just follow that format as we develop the characters along the way. And go ahead.
No. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, I that's a stupid story too. I was going to say in college, I won $250 at trivia night
Oh,
from the A team. And I'm gonna see if you know this one.
uh-oh.
What are the colors on the A team van?
Black and red
And gray.
and gray.
That's how I won. That's how I won it. The top is gray. I was like, ooh, there it is. But yeah, I want to hear one of them say, I love it when a plan comes together. That happened like every episode.
That's fantastic. I have a little bingo sheet that I've been waiting for, and that is one of the, like, for the season. I'm trying to fill out my whole bingo card. So I've got a couple of crossed bingos, right? But I'm trying to fill out the whole card now. And one of them is, I love it when a plan comes together. And there's a couple of A-team references on there. It's great. I've been waiting for him to throw it in there. It'll be fantastic. I'll have a huge celebration when it does, because I'm quite confident that at some point they'll go throw that line in there. Right? And Will Morgan did make it. Will's in our chat. He's listening in. Hey, Will, good to see you, my friend. Tyler the Kid. Now, Tyler is a younger guy. He's in his 20s. Tyler, you're early 20s or mid 20s? I can't remember. He's a pretty younger guy. Tyler says black and orange. No, it's red with and again with some gray in there.
The very top is gray. Yeah, interesting kind of thing is that you'll oftentimes hear how Star Wars pulls on Akira Kurosawa and Seven Samurai, and A Team is derivative of Seven Samurai as well. It was like a port of that same idea again, and Magnificent Seven.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
no, I didn't know that about the A Team.
Yeah.
But it's quite obvious that the show is modeled after. I keep watching for them to do a repaint on their ship and put a red stripe down it. Right?
That would be. They should do it. Filoni, do it, man.
He needs to do it. You know, Lucasfilm, if you're watching, we need a red stripe on the Bad Batch's not van.
And do a Bad Batch stunt show at Disneyland, because the 18 stunt show at Universal was rad when I was 5.
There you go. And they could totally do that, right? Like have the all the characters on there doing a live action kind of encounter where they kind of get nailed down by some stormtroopers and they have to fight their way out. That could be fantastic.
I'm all for it.
That'd be great. So I think that covers the all the topics I wanted to bring up. We could open it up for some Q&A and anything else that that's on your mind, Star Wars related. Shut that down. So you guys in the chat, let us know if you have any questions. We can talk about, answer for you. That'll be fun. Mark Hamilton, go ahead.
No, I keep wondering if we're going to see them actually continue this story into the Book of Boba. And I think if they are, when this series ends, the Book of Boba trailer is when we finally know. I think that's when we'll see the connection, because that would be a sweet tie-in. That
could be really good. And we were talking about maybe doing a Crimson Dawn live action with Emilia Clarke. The Bad Batch could be in there. We could get Omega in there. All the live action, characters. Yeah. They're still in scope, and we could potentially get an Inquisitor show up or different things like that. There's all kinds of opportunity for a Crimson Dawn show that would fit in this era, because we know that Kira is still out there doing her thing, whatever her thing is, during the original trilogy. So there's a big time gap from Solo to the original trilogy that you could make all kinds of stories. Yeah. So who's at this point in the show? We get people asking their favorite Bad Batch character. Who would be your favorite Bad Batch character at this point?
Man, you know what's funny is Wrecker is my favorite when he connects. But then there are other times when I'm like, oh, that didn't land. That wasn't funny. Like you just bumped your head. But when Wrecker's working, I love Wrecker because I love Mr. T.
Perfect. Yeah, me too. I absolutely love Wrecker. He is my favorite of the show as a whole. And like you, there are different times where other characters will kind of step up, and I really, really love what's going on. It might be Omega, or it might be Hunter, right? Hunter had a couple of good ones. Peter says for him it has to be Hunter, so it could absolutely be. But for me as a whole, it'd be Wrecker.
And it might be Crosshair in the end if he ends up coming back into the fold, and if they end up solving that, because that's such an interesting arc that he's had if it goes that way.
Oh, good point. And there's a lot of speculation about Crosshair after he got blasted in the face by the ion engine there.
Yeah.
And what effect might that have on his inhibitor chip?
I thought he was Dengar for a minute when the episode started. I was like, Dengar? Oh no, it's just Crosshair with the thing on his head.
There were a lot of people wondering, does he become Dengar? And they're like, no, there's other content. The Dengar is already established. Dengar and Crosshair can't be the same dude. But he looks just like Dengar. Yeah, it was really good. And Tyler, you're 30. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'll bet you get carded a lot, right? Not seen him. He's a very young looking. Will, remember the Crimson Dawn, including Paul Bettany's character. Oh, that's what is his character's name? Paul Bettany.
Oh, yeah. I'm drawing a blank on that one right now. I know it too. It's really kind of I actually broke the name, which is dumb of me to not know this, but I broke it when it was the other actor. The dude from The Wire played that role originally until they reshot it. Yeah, and he was like a wolf man, kind of weird. It was a totally different looking character. It was strange.
Dryden Voss. There we go.
Dryden Voss.
That's
Voss. Right. I thought I broke Dryden Voss, and I thought, is this Quinlan Voss? And is this like his post Clone Wars pseudonym? Because he survived at one point. And I was like, did he survive? Is it Quinlan Voss? No. They're just cousins or something.
That's great. And Mike Porter's totally lying, right? Like he says he's around 20. Now, Mike is one of the few guys that hang out that's actually older than Santa. So we make jokes about it all the time that Mike Porter is older than Santa, and he's just like sand. He gets everywhere. So sometimes we call him Mike the Sandman Porter. The difference is he's not rough and coarse and get that. We like Mike Porter. He's a good friend of the show.
He's more like Naboo.
we do love it.
Old softy.
Yeah, Martin, favorite guy does the accounts for who does the accounts for the BB Barry. Not seeing vital to their cause. Martin's just being nutter. He's silly. Martin, you're hilarious. Dengar looks awful. Let's see. Oh, Abby says Mike and I are the same age. No way, Abby. Mike is older than me. You're not older than Santa. There's no way, Abby. I'm just not buying it. I'm not buying it. Abby is a fantastic. She's one of our mods, one of our admins on the Discord server as well, and she had the band hammer ready. Her and Nikki, you don't mess with them. They're the powerful female characters in Star Wars.
Don't ban me, Abby.
they're great.
I'm sorry, Abby. Sorry.
They're great. What else? Oh, we briefly touched on Omega being enhanced. Do you think she's enhanced in any way other than just being a perfect genetic clone of Django?
Well, this question ties into my hope, and my hope is that at one point, because Django's still doing work for the cloners when we see him in Attack of the Clones, and Boba's like 10 years old already ish.
Yeah.
I'm not sure his exact age, but it looks like it's about 10. And so I'm hoping at some point he was like, I want a little girl. And he just goes for the same kind of route with that. But then he gets beheaded before she's big enough to go on bounty hunter adventures with him. And so she stays there. Because I think that makes the family link for Boba maybe more personal. So his father's wish.
You bring up a neat point that we talked about during the Attack of the Clones, when we first see Boba Fett there in Django in their quarters on Kamino.
Yeah.
Omega was already there.
Yeah.
If you do the math, you just think about it a little bit. She's maybe 2-3 years younger than Boba Fett in that ballpark. Boba Fett was more than 3 years old. So that means that Omega was there. She was on the facility when Obi-Wan was there, and she was in the facility when Django was still there. It's absolutely possible that Django knew of Omega's existence. I think
and Django don't change diapers. It's just a fact. It's canon.
There you have it. There you have it. Our takeaway of the day: Django don't change diapers. That's fantastic. Yeah, it's absolutely possible he knew of her, and it's possible that Boba knew of her. Although I think they were doing a good job of hiding her. Nala Se, nice. Nala Se is the one that was raising Omega as a child. As her own child. You can tell she has that relationship. And Lama Su even says, you've gotten too close to this. You can't be involved. Yeah. And so, Nala was raising her as family. She was involved with the medical stuff that Nala Se was doing. She was part of her family. She was wearing the family colors. And even that headband matches Nala's. So it's obvious she was raising her as her daughter.
Yeah, it to me, when I saw that, I was like, oh, they gave her a gift. Like that shows some kind of connection there.
Yeah, I thought of it having some parallels to Moses in the Bible. Moses being raised in Pharaoh's home. Right? Yeah. So he was a prince of Egypt in many ways, but he was a Hebrew. And here you have Omega, who was raised in a Kamino family with all the kind of privilege that a Kaminoan would have, but she's Django's.
So maybe if that analogy goes further, she kind of leads the clones out of Egypt, so to speak, off of Kamino as the Exodus starts. You know what I mean? For them, yeah, it could go that way. I mean, it really could. I have to think that we're going to see in this show the clone program totally shut down, stormtroopers completely rise up, and what's happened to all of the clones. We know that some stay as teachers, is what we were told, but those might just be a few kind of traitors. I mean, it would be cool if there was like a clone uprising.
It would be. And a lot of people have been predicting a clone uprising, and if she were to carry through with the Moses analogy, that would fit in really, really well.
Yeah.
And I think that could be something pretty big for the show. And again, I can't leave this alone, right? I can't. I think we've seen this helmet in Sid's office already, and I think it was dropped there as an Easter egg on purpose, and I think we'll see that come back. Mike,
I hope so. I really do. And I also think that costume would probably work better on a lady Mandalorian than a male. White is not a slimming color, which is why I wear black.
Santa's wearing black too. I've got my Darth Vader shirt on.
Santa knows.
Yeah. Moses. So Mike Porter there. Moses was in his high school class. And Mark has a question. He said, you and Corey were tight. Do you know what's going on with KRT?
I don't. I don't know anything about it. That's too bad.
Yeah, they put out, they're closing their Discord server, and so they've made a mutual decision to part ways.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoyed KRT's content, watching their show, and I think they had a nice chemistry together.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching them. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little.
The thing about Corey is just a real Star Wars fan. Like, and he has that really cool, he's in that really cool place in history where like I was just like that guy, but at the same time, like the 90s came and there was just no more Star Wars. And so I was like, I wasn't until I was like 19 when the prequel started, you know, but he got to go right from Clone Wars into uh all of this. And it's like it's an interesting place for a hardcore fan like that, just to like see him kind of skate through. He's very lucky on that front.
Yeah, he is I liked all three of them, and it's a shame to see him kind of breaking up. And I really do enjoy Star Wars News Network. They're doing great work there.
Yeah.
But you know, it's nice to see when you get some folks together who just love to talk about Star Wars, and that's why I'm so thankful you came today to talk to me. You know, I'm somewhat new to the YouTube space. I've only been here just over a year and a half, and of course you were somebody I was aware of pretty early on, and you had a YouTube presence. It's great to see you coming back, and that we could just get together and kind of nerd out about Star Wars. And for those of you watching, yeah, Jason's been so kind to offer to bring me on making StarWars.net show sometime. If there's any content that I can contribute to, I'd be thrilled to death to do that. And hopefully we'll be able to do something on a somewhat regular basis as well, as we build a community and just, you know, really enjoy talking about Star Wars. And again, we mentioned it earlier, I like to keep the content about the content. And I think we've done a good job of that today. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think anybody who loves Star Wars and has something to say, they should start their own show or do their own podcast. I mean, if you have something to say and you want to be active, like, you should definitely do it. It's not as hard as it seems, and it's really fun. And it's there's nothing more fun than talking to somebody like you, for instance, than trying to talk about it with somebody who doesn't like it like we do, and you feel like you're kind of forcing your love of something into somebody's conversation. I love that I'm able just to get it all out here, you know?
Exactly. It's fun to speculate and have different ideas as you come together. It seeds different ideas, and I agree with you. Like, I was encouraged to start this because I had Josh Lucas at the Den of Nerds kind of encouraged me, said, Brian, you need to start a channel. And at the time I was going by Santa Brian, and my middle name is Brian, Bryan, but so I was going by Santa Brian, and Josh said, dude, you're totally missing it. You should go by Star Wars Santa. And so that's how the name came to exist. And Josh just said, start, do something. And I've heard several people give the advice, like, talk about what you're passionate about, right? Spend time just putting out content you enjoy. And folks, whether you've got 10 followers or 10,000 followers or 100,000, whatever, it is sort of the byproduct of doing something that you enjoy. And the real reward is just having fun, right?
Yeah, you get to have fun, and don't copy anybody. Just let your personality shine, be you, warts and all sometimes. And if you do that, you know, you can't mess up. I mean, you can't mess up being yourself and talking about what you love. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. And Tyler, yes, I do. I think that Omega is going to end up wearing some version of this armor. So it was Boba Fett's prototype armor before it was Mandalorian. This was called Super Trooper armor, and it was in the early kind of concept drawings for Boba Fett, and he was going to be a Super Trooper.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, you could see in San Francisco that when they first premiered Boba, and the first time he was ever seen was in a parade. and it was the costume just totally white, and it talked and everything, and it had all these like gadgets that did things, and that was how it was first shown.
Yeah.
And it's just it looks, I mean, it's in a lot of ways it's actually better than what they went with, but it didn't look lived in. But now that we're like, you know, and this guy was to be this gritty bounty hunter, so it made sense. But if you end up in a different perspective from a different like heritage for that character who's gone through this different route, that costume could be totally rocking.
It could be, and I can see her maybe, you know, starting off white and then maybe adding some colors. Just a couple of things like that Will pointed out to me. If you look at Boba Fett, when he's in like his civilian clothes, he tends to wear dark colors, browns, grays, with like black highlights on them, right? Really dark stuff. You look at Omega in her, we'll call it civilians. It's very light colors, whites and lighter kind of overtones. And where he goes into don the Boba Fett armor, right? So everybody knows Boba Fett. I got to reach over here, grab my vintage collection Boba Fett here, right? Boba Fett, he wears that dark green kind of olive with the darker red and black on it. It would make sense that her Mandalorian armor would be lighter themed, right? So she could go absolutely with this kind of theme. So it could be a lot of fun. Where's Tyler? A screen test of who I'd assume was Jeremy Bullock wearing a white prototype armor in the 70s.
No, it wasn't Bullock. Bullock was over in Elstree Studios, and I know Ben Burt worked on it, but I don't think he was the guy in the costume. And Joe Johnston designed it. Who wore it? I need to look that up. That's a really good question. It's in the Making of Star Wars by J.W. Rinsler, I believe, or Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah,
where we first see Boba. I was looking on here. White armor, special. It doesn't mention. It's kind of thin on background here. Initially envisioned as Super Trooper in all white armor. The beginning of a character that has become legend. And that's about it.
As a kid, I was at school and I went to the school library, and there was this directory of science fiction, and I picked it up, checked it out of the school library, and it talked about Boba Fett being a Mandalorian super commando. And I can't remember what the book is. I've always wanted to find it. It had a bunch of other sci-fi stuff, and I'm always like, it always trips me out because like, how did they get that so known before? And it was never said in the movies, and it was never picked up anywhere else. It was like in like the poster book or something. It was just so rare.
Right. Well, you know, Star Wars fans will dive deep into to find these little nuggets.
Yeah.
What's really been great about The Mandalorian is that Dave and John are going back and just grabbing some obscure piece and making it into a character, you know?
Right.
Tyler brings up another point. He says he'd like to see possibly Hunter make a sacrifice move at the end to save Omega. That's been a little bit of a speculation. I have thought that perhaps that's what Crosshair will do. Crosshair will overcome his programming. He'll sacrifice himself to save his brothers and Omega at the end. That'll be his redemption arc. But if Omega's enhancement is perception, she's got heightened perception that overlaps her a lot with Hunter. And then you end up with two characters that are really heightened perception, and that perhaps it would make sense in the story arc for him to be sacrificed, her to survive, and perhaps pay homage to him in this kind of way, and perhaps Crosshair comes back into the group as a redeemed character. So Hunter dies, Crosshair comes back, and she kind of continues that ability. It'll be fun to watch how it goes.
Yeah. I always wonder about Crosshair, because if they were to kill Crosshair, on one hand, like, you know, it's like in a horror movie, when a character dies, they usually have done something immoral like before they're killed by Jason Voorhees or whatever. And it's like in this same kind of way, it's like, has he done anything actually wrong? because he has a chip in his brain.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's so like in a way not fair. But then again, if he does like overcome it, like I will fight my programming and then saves them, then I guess the group has not revenge, but something to atone for with the bad guys. You know?
Yeah. Oh, and they keep bringing up, but Omega says it overall. Crosshair, it's not your fault, right? Like, and they keep mentioning that over and over again. And Mark asked a question: how many shows do you know that are being actively developed, and are there any that haven't been announced?
So to be honest with you, like the way that I hear that things go down isn't exactly the way that it's been presented on the internet. And I can't say for certain how correct I am, but like when you hear like this is an active development and stuff like that, I don't think it or whatever, it doesn't really work that way. It has more to do with they hire somebody to write something. And when that something is turned in, then it goes on. Like you'll hear a lot, like, and it's almost always a pitch. The things that I've heard about, like for instance, I broke The Mandalorian was The Mandalorian, and I broke that Pedro Pascal was The Mandalorian. And in that lineage of things, I think there's enough time it's safe to talk about it a bit. I knew that they had pitched the show and that they were excited for the concept. I had heard that they were going to make the Boba Fett movie. When the Boba Fett movie started to fall through for various reasons, that was when they let this other concept that was better come in, right? Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until they had an actual script, the first episode, turned in as a rough draft, that things started cooking. And so you'll hear things like, oh, this is an active, they have this, they're eyeing this. In my opinion, that's not how it works.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so I will hear something like, so-and-so is pitching at Lucasfilm. And I'm like, oh, I hope it happens. And then it almost never does.
It was like
for the record.
Yeah. Like we talked about earlier with early stages of development. Right. Like,
yeah,
all these studios have a wide berth of things that are in early stages of development.
Well, you know, Rangers of the New Republic, or
yeah.
Rangers, or is it Rangers of the Republic?
Yeah.
It's still just what it was. Nothing has changed there. People have said it's been canceled or it's not an active development. Well, that isn't exactly inaccurate because it's being written by Favreau, and Favreau is one human being. He cannot be in multiple places at once doing 5 jobs at the same time. And so they haven't written a script for it. So almost everything that we've heard about that show, other than that, when that trade said it's not an active development, that was true in the sense that it hasn't been written. So, and I think that there was some assumption and extrapolation based off of that. But I expect Rangers to still come out.
Excellent. There you go. I love that line of thinking. I tended to lean the same direction, but that it was still sitting there and still in queue, but that doesn't mean that it's been canceled. And a lot of the narrative came out that, hey, it's been canceled. Well, it was like, well, I never saw that. Right. I've seen that it's not in active development, but that doesn't mean that it's canceled.
Yeah. And when I saw people like talking about how like Cara Dune was this and that, like was Cara Dune in it? I don't know for certain, but I would say almost certainly she was. But I also know that it's an ensemble show, and I also know that if she was that integral to it, they would simply recast Cara Dune.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down. If they needed to go that route, that's what they would do.
That's a good point too, because a lot of TV shows, and it's not happened with Star Wars, but it even happened in Harry Potter where they had to recast Dumbledore, right? Because tragically, the actor died.
Yeah,
but it's happened in movies and TV shows where critical figures, characters, get recast with somebody else, and sometimes that somebody else looks a lot like the first one, sometimes not. Sometimes they just move on like nothing ever happened. And you get 2 or 3 characters playing, or actresses playing that character over a span of a story arc. Yeah. And so it's absolutely possible that we don't see Cara Dune for a season or a partial season, and all of a sudden there's Cara Dune and it's not Gina Carano.
Back during the prequel era, a friend at Lucasfilm told me once that Natalie Portman had a very horrible time in the desert on Attack of the Clones, and it became an issue. And at one point, they had to tell her, if you don't want to be in the movie, we could get Keira Knightley and we could just put the face paint back on her. And she shaped up. Yeah. But it's like, there you go. I mean, it's even Natalie Portman went up against that at one point when she became difficult.
Well, and Palpatine's been at least 3 different people, right? Have been
Clive Barker was the original at one point?
Yeah, and there's that woman that was in the Force Ghost, or not the Force Ghost, the projections. I can't remember her name. And then, of course, everybody's Palpatine. There's a question in here. And Martin brings up the Proto-Fett may have been Dwayne Dunham.
Okay. Yeah. If I had my stupid book here, I could just look at it. But I don't.
And EMA, I saw put in here earlier as well. There's new images of Hayden been growing out his hair and building out his chest and abs. That would indicate some Clone Wars flashbacks, right?
Yeah, that would definitely indicate some Revenge of the Sith flashbacks. Yeah. I mean, it's like one of those things where they could easily give him that wig too. So it's like, is it connected or not? But I think that's telling now.
Yeah. Let's see. As happens here with StreamYard, it holds on a bunch of comments and then releases them all at once. So XR John said, "Imbo, that means we're getting a show on." But I heard that rumors. No, I'm not going to even go there. I like to give my friend a hard time about the Constable Zuvio, so we're going to have a Constable Zuvio dedicated show. I've heard it from very reliable sources. No.
Well, I'm here to confirm that Constable Zuvio is in active development.
There you go.
They're eyeing Bradley Cooper for Constable Zuvio.
Martin is going to love where this conversation just went. Mark, do you know anything about Sebastian Stan?
Dude, I want that to happen so bad. I don't. I haven't heard anything about them doing anything with Luke Skywalker in the immediate future, but I hope so. Because I mean, that is just such a. We all want it. Mark Hamill wants it. Stan wants it. I mean, I have to think if we all want it, and Lucasfilm has to want it too. They just have to have that like concept, that good thing. And I don't know how old Sebastian Stan is, but he looks like he'd be a great post Return of the Jedi Luke.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly. And I think now that we've had Mark Hamill come in with the de-aging, we've got him. Now's a good time to transition over into Sebastian Stan. It's just one more step because that de-aging stuff, as good as it was still a little bit wonky.
It was. I love the scene, the execution. It was an interesting experiment. That's where I fall on it.
Exactly. You guys are having fun in the chat. I'm going to leave it in the chat because it's hilarious stuff. So, hey, we've gone a little bit over. Jason, thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me today. I hope that it becomes the first of many times that we are able to do this.
I hope so too.
I've had a blast just hanging out and talking. We'll see what we can do, right? And if I could come on your show in the afternoon sometime to do this thing with you, I would be thrilled to death to do it. So
that'd be great. I'd love to have you on.
This was a lot of fun. And just so everybody knows, a couple of show notes here towards the end. We have been working towards getting to monetization. We're above 3,500 hours. We are pushing towards those 4,000 hours. My birthday comes up July 22nd. So we've kind of set a pin in it that if we can get to those 4,000 hours by Santa's birthday, and Nikki came on, she had a really good idea. I'll go ahead and don the red. I will put on the red and go full Santa with you guys for my birthday. And we will celebrate hitting those 4,000 hours together. And we'll invite our friends to come on and celebrate with us. And Jason, if you're available, we'd love to get you in as part of that celebration as well. I've put some ticklers out there to different people, and it would be a lot of fun. So we're pushing towards it. And for anybody who's not that familiar with Jason, you've not heard of him before, you've just come out from under the rock. Jason Ward is, I put all the contact information or the information in the description here. Your YouTube channel, your Twitter, Facebook, and website, makingstarwars.net. You guys be sure to go check all of those out. And Jason, you just started what I think you said 2 weeks in a row now, right? We're starting week 3 of
week 3,
coming back to doing regular Star Wars content.
Good times. I missed everybody. It's been fun.
Yeah, and I know there are people who have been out there. Our mods have done a great job, but it's good to see that you're starting to get things put back together. Your life starting to reorganize and move forward.
Thank you.
And that's what we want to do. We just want to move forward and focus on Star Wars, right? None of the drama, none of the outside stuff. When we have to, we'll bring it up. But for the most part, this is what we're about. Is just enjoying it.
Laser swords. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I've been enjoying your live streams in the afternoons. It's typically 5 p.m. Eastern-ish, right?
Yeah, my kids are home. I work from home, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get on, kids. I set them up, and I hope for the best. Sometimes they crash it, but I hope for the best.
It's a lot of fun. So, you guys, thank you everybody for stopping in today. The chat has been a lot of fun, and we look forward to doing this again sometime. Everybody, you guys have a wonderful day. And as I like to say at the end of my streams, Merry Christmas, everybody, and may the Force be with you. Bye-bye.